Bijad eva yata bijam. Bijad eva yata bijam. Dehe ata eva shasvata. Deyata eva shashvata. Dehena re raja. Deha deho bijayate. Bijadeva yata bijam. Deyata eva shashvata. Dehinos darjan. Deha deho bijayate. Bijadeva yata bijam. Deyata eva shashvata. Dehino darjan. Deha dejo bijayate. Bijadeva yata bijam. Deyata yashvashata. Dehena dehano raja. Deha deho bijayate. Dayata eva shashvata. Dehena dehano rajan. Deha deho bijayate. Bija deva yata bija. Deyata eva shashvata. Dehena, by the body. Dehana, of the father possessing a material body. Rajan, O king. Dehat, from the body of the mother. Deha, another body. Abhijayate, takes birth. Bijat, from one seed. Eva, indeed. Yata, just as. Bijam, another seed. Dehi, a person who has accepted a material body. Ata, the material elements. Eva, like. Shashvata, eternal. Translation. As from one seed another seed is generated, O king, so from one body, the body of the father, through another body, the body of the mother, a third body is generated, the body of a son. As the elements of the material body are eternal, the living entity who appears through these material elements is also eternal. Please responsibly. As from one seed another seed is generated, O king, so from one body, the body of the father, through another body, the body of the mother, a third body is generated, the body of a son. As the elements of the material body are eternal, the living entity who appears through these material elements is also eternal. From Bhagavad Gita, we understand that there are two energies, namely the superior energy and the inferior energy. Inferior energy consists of the 5 gross and 3 subtle material elements. The living entity who represents the superior energy appears in different types of bodies through these elements by the manipulation or supervision of the material energy. Actually, both the material and spiritual energies, matter and spirit, exist eternally as potencies of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The potent entity is the Supreme Person. Since the spiritual energy, the living being who is part and parcel of the Supreme Lord, desires to enjoy this material world, the Lord gives him a chance to accept different types of material bodies and enjoy or suffer in different material conditions. Factually, the spiritual energy, the living entity who desires to enjoy material things, is manipulated by the Supreme Lord. So-called father and mother have nothing to do with the living entity. As a result of his own choice and karma, the living being takes different bodies through the agency of so-called fathers and mothers. Om Agana Timaranda Shyagananjana Shalakaya Chakshunanilitamyena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swabadantikam Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadha Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhaktarinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyeva cha Paditanam Bhavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. So, as one seed is generated from another seed, so one body generates another body, but the elements are all eternal. So I thought that was interesting that you've got two alternatives, haven't you, really? Either everything came into existence from nothing, which is really no, it's incomprehensible that, and we certainly don't have any experience of something coming from nothing. Or the other alternative is everything was always there. So if everything was always there, then that means the spirit and the matter were always there. Of course, first of all, we'd have to have some educational system established to us to distinguish what is matter from spirit in the first place. Otherwise, spirit is considered to be just a byproduct of mixing matter. Life comes from life. So, so that would be the first premise, to establish what is spirit, what is matter. Then the next one would be, what is its origin? And if we come to the conclusion that it's eternally there, it always exists, ever permutating, the material energy is constantly changing all the time, like a kaleidoscope of modes of material nature, spectrum of colors interacting and producing all kinds of varieties. But the elements have always been there. The manifestations are temporary, but the elements that make up the manifestations are permanent. And then there has to be some kind of a governing energy behind matter, because matter itself is inert. So what propels matter? There's an interesting book actually by Vyasaki Prabhu, and he's examining their words that are used like time and gravity. And because we have a word for it, then we think we understand it. But actually they don't really understand what time is, and they don't really understand how gravity works either, because everything's kind of floating around. So how come it's gravity? Where does gravity fit in? And they actually haven't really qualified these statements in the first place. So they'll just say, well, there's time and there's gravity, and then we'll move on from there. You can't really move on from there because you don't understand them in the first place. So that's it. Let's re-examine. And they also haven't really distinguished what is the difference between consciousness and matter. So if actually the spiritual energy, the living entity who desires to enjoy material things, is manipulated by the Supreme Lord. So Prabhupada says that, doesn't he? He becomes further entangled. The more he tries to control, the more the intricacies of the illusion, he becomes more and more enmeshed. So he's trying to manipulate. The more he's trying to manipulate, the more he's manipulated by the Supreme Lord. That's interesting, yeah? Because he could be feeling like he's doing really well, but at the end of it, he's completely cocooned. He's entangled completely in the material energy. Like one scientist was saying, I've been trying to find the soul, And somehow or other, somewhere, I've ended up with these little atoms, and the soul has slipped between my fingers. So they become dumbfounded. Everyone, actually, whether you're Einstein, Lord Brahma, or the ant, everyone reaches a point where they become bewildered by the material energy. It's just a question of how intricate is their bewilderment. It may be very, very simple, and then you may become super intelligent, and then you just have a even more super intricate manipulation by the Supreme Lord until you give up the propensity to manipulate. And then when you no longer manipulate, then the Supreme Lord can reveal himself. Atashi Krishna Namadi. Seva Mukhi Jivado. When the tongue is engaged in seva, then Ata Shri Krishna Namadi. All the aspects of Krishna. Sparat Yevyada. Sparat is to manifest. Everything becomes manifest. But it's according to the Lord, once the Lord decides to. And you can't penetrate through into understanding the Lord, no matter how big your telescope is, or how small your microscope is, or how powerful your microscope is. You just become more and more intricately illusioned by the material energy. So to distinguish matter from spirit and to understand what is actually illusion, these are the challenges for the educational system. And interestingly enough, in the 13th chapter, Shiva Ramanuja was giving a series of lectures on what is actual knowledge. Besides these, whatever there may be is ignorance. And humility and pridelessness are listed as two of the first prerequisites for knowledge. Which is interesting, isn't it? If a person gets a PhD, then according to the Vedic standard, the PhD, he would have to have excellent humility and pridelessness. Otherwise, he's invalidated. He won't be allowed to get his PhD. These are all symptoms of knowledge. A person who has acquired many facts and regurgitates them, but doesn't have humility and pridelessness, then this is ignorance. Besides this, whatever it may be, it's ignorance. So whatever it is you're getting into, whatever it is you're studying, it's taking you further away, and you're becoming more and more manipulated. So that's interesting, isn't it? What an amazing illusion, that the more knowledge you gain, the more in ignorance you're becoming. Isn't that interesting? The more knowledge you gain, the more you go into ignorance. And what ignorance means is to ignore. It means you've decided to shut down, stonewall, no communication. I'm ignoring. I don't accept there's a personality out there. I don't want any interaction with him. I'm putting a barrier up. I want to ignore. It's referred to as the separated material energy. The energy is separated, so it's disconnected in the sense that you're not conscious directly of Krishna, whereas in the spiritual energy you are. But that will only happen if you connect in the heart. So if you're on the mental platform, the intellectual platform, the bodily platform, then you remain disconnected. You remain under the influence of the material energy. You remain manipulated, and your position is one of ignoring. You're turning your back on a personal relationship, either due to attachment, due to fear of the conception of void, or fear of a personal identity. You break it down what it is. It's attitude, really. Attitude that counts. They say more important than the facts are the attitude. Interesting, eh? So the more knowledge you gain, the more in ignorance you can become. So-called knowledge anyway. As you become more aware of all the components and their interactions, you're getting further and further away, becoming more and more distracted. People have more educational facility now than ever, but look at the person's character. How are they behaving? Is there humility there? Pridelessness is there? Are the people gentle when they interact? Are they vicious? Are they vindictive? They have agendas to pursue. What is it? What's the nature of people these days? It's a very, very nasty culture. People are put up on pedestals, and then they're brought down. They bring them up, glorify them, and then they destroy them. You know? Yeah. By example, by association, also through logic as well, through understanding our real position. Mahaprabhu was explaining humility just means understanding reality. That's what it really means. You're nothing. You're a tiny, insignificant spark of consciousness. And you're going around in this body with big muscles and kicking the sand in people's faces on the beaches and being a big man. And then that's why the Russians, they say when the Russians went up, the astronauts, they had to get cancelled when they came back down, because when they saw how big the universe was and how small the planet was and how they were just a speck on a speck in a vast, it wouldn't even make any difference if you snuffed out the whole planet, Never mind yourself on the planet. You're nothing on the planet. The planet's nothing in the universe. It was just too overwhelming. The burden of their insignificance was too overwhelming. They couldn't go back into trying to be important again, and things just didn't seem to matter anymore when they looked at the vast expanse of the cosmic manifestation. Everything just became, what are you going to achieve? You're a speck on a speck and you occupy a fraction of time. What are you going to achieve? What are you really going to do? Nothing. There'll be nothing. In a very short time, you won't even be, you'll just be some like indecipherable symbols on a gravestone somewhere that nobody even cares about. So what, You won't even care about yourself because you'll be somebody else. It's nothing. So, okay, humility just means getting a grip of what reality is, Get your feet on the ground. Realize the reality of the situation. It's false ego. It's false. Okay, the ego's good, but it's false. What you think you are is false. The guy who's driving around in his car, he's got this massive car. You see sometimes there's a certain brand of car and it produces a certain attitude in the driver. The driver's like really narky, that drives a particular type of car. And the ego has got so much into this car, which is super efficient. And so he's become affected by identifying with the car, And he's thinking that he's better than people that are driving these little silly cars that are just driving around, they've only got 500cc engines. And he's like, get out the way, I'm a big Range Rover. I cost 80,000, he only costs 3,000. Get out the way. So drag him out the car and say, look, you're not the car. You're the same as him. Exactly the same as him. So that's how you bring people to humility. Because you try and do it in a nice way. There's different ways you can acquire knowledge. Or Mahaprabhu was explaining, there can be transformation through accumulation of information, or there can be transformation from some intense experience, which really wakes you up and makes you realize, I am nothing, But either way, there needs to be a transformation. The better way is just by hearing, but if you do not hear, you will act through false ego, Krishna says. Nasroshasi vinanshasi. If you keep the false ego, you're finished, you're disconnected. It's like if you grab the rope, I can pull you out. But if you don't hear me, then you act out of false ego and then you'll be lost. I can't pull you out. Your false ego won't allow me to pull you out. So that's as much as Krishna can do for us, then it's up to us after that. There's only so much God is prepared to do without interfering with our independence, and then it's up to us,
Thank you, Prabhu. So humility, very nice to know, is like understanding reality. And generally, in my conditioned state, I struggle to see the reality, struggle to assess the situation. And my mother says something, my father is saying something. How do I see the reality? And generally, right, everyone has a version to say. So how best can I actually understand the reality and live by?
Well, when we say conditioning, we can look at it as being dirt. When we say we're conditioned, we can say we're soiled subtly by the material energy. So if you're soiled, the process is purification. It's like it doesn't matter how clever you are. If you're dirty, you need to take a shower. You don't get any cleaner by reading books. You have to jump in the shower and get cleansed. Then you become clean. So the cleanliness is an internal one, and it's a question of attitude. And that consciousness can be directly affected by sound vibration. And pure spiritual sound vibration, Shabda Brahma, can purify, can dissolve. Prabhupada refers to it as dissolving the false ego. So all that soil, it's the one part of the body we don't cleanse, isn't it? I mean, imagine going 50 years and you've never washed under your armpits, what that would smell like. And you have this mind that's festering, not just this lifetime. And when has it ever been cleansed? People don't even know whether it can be cleansed. So that mind is like bubbling around in all this festering conditioning. And the only way to get out of the situation is to cleanse it, is to wash off these false identifications, and also these associations, Janasanga. The Janasanga, Sangha Chagat, we follow in the footsteps, take the association of saintly persons, and we free ourselves. Like Prabhupada's saying here, it doesn't matter who your mother or father are, they're not really your mother or father. It's like if we do a drama now, okay, you be Ashisha's father, you be his mother, put that dress on, put a mustache on, okay, now go and be his father, And then after the drama, you're crying, oh, no, where's my father gone? And I said, Ashish, come on, it was only a drama. Take yourself together, man, wake up. It was just a drama for an hour. Oh, no, but he was such a good father. And he really seemed to love me. But you weren't even Ashish, you were playing Dilip, and you were dressed up with a funny hat on. And so you weren't Ashish, you were Dilip, and he wasn't your father, and she wasn't your mother. Everyone was playing their role for a temporary period of time,
So, considering this, could there be a possibility I may ignore any loving relationship with my father and mother, and I may not take any responsibility? Anyways, you're not my mom and dad.
Well, better than that is to love everybody. See everybody as your mother and father. Don't just love your mother and father. Don't be exclusive. The way it's referred to as a pencil of prema comes into the heart, and when it radiates in the heart, the prema goes out. Prabhupada loved everyone. He loved the ant. Everybody, saw some kids picking away in the bin, and Prabhupada started crying. He said everyone should get fed within 8 miles of any temple. So he just had so much love for everybody, Devotees that were near Prabhupada said that invariably Prabhupada had tears in his eyes. He was always feeling this overwhelming compassion and love for everybody, not just his mother and father. Oh, I'll look after my mother and father. But what about them down the road? They can't afford electricity and they're dying of hypothermia. Well, tough luck. They're not my mother and father. I love my mother and father, not them. So it should be exclusive. This inclusive love isn't really love anyway. It's extended sense gratification. I love them because that suits me, and I gratify my senses by loving them. So that's actually extended sense gratification. And it's interesting, Shri Ramesh was talking yesterday, that we don't actually really know what love is, what it really looks like. We just have this idea of what it is, I love my mother and father, so you do as you're told, you're a nice boy, you don't swear in front of them. It's like a really kind of shallow understanding of what love is, Love is very deep, it's eternal, and it's all-inclusive. You love everyone. When you love God, then you love everyone automatically, because you see everybody as his part and parcel. But if you just water the leaf, then you don't help any parts of and you don't really water the leaf either. The leaf's like, you can shower all kinds of affection on your mother and father, but if you're not going to help them get out of the repetition of birth and death, what use is it? You're just entangling them in this manipulation of the material energy. You're not doing them any good, really, It's like somebody comes along on a boat and says, hop on the boat. And, a couple of people hop on the boat and he's going down. And then you say, where are we going? And then he goes, I'm not sure, but I'm just going to roll like anything. Oh, okay. It seems to be sinking. Yeah, we'll sort that one out as well. But right now, don't worry. At least you're on the boat. But you're on a sinking boat and you don't know where you're going. Therefore, a person shouldn't have children. He shouldn't have students. He shouldn't take on any responsibility for anybody if he doesn't know how to deliver them. Otherwise, he's doing them a disservice, Yeah, get on the boat. Yeah, everything's going to be fine. Apart from the fact we don't know where we're going and the boat is sinking, but apart from that, everything is fine. Isn't this an amazing boat? Look at this boat. Cool boat.
Yeah, thanks for. You see, in the purport, it was talking about when we want to enjoy the material energy, we get manipulated by Krishna. Maybe just one sort of reflection, if you could comment on it, that like we think we're the center of the universe, like the entire cosmic manifestation sort of exists for us. But then we see, like, for instance, the example of the mother and the father. Krishna is manipulating them in order to facilitate this situation for the son in order to get a certain amount of karma and desire, etc. So it's just interesting that even though we're trying to fulfill our own desires, we're actually just end up being agents in fulfilling the desires of other living entities as well.
Yeah, it's very confusing actually. And then you've got lifetimes of that, stringing through lifetimes of that. And then you've got bucket lists from previous lives. And in your last life, you really wanted a horse and carriage. And now you're driving around in a horse and carriage and everyone's going past you in Volvos. And you're thinking, this is weird, you know. Why did I want to get this anyway? You know? But you've got a bucket list from the past life. So you're always a lifetime behind your desires, trying to catch up. That's why everyone's really confused. You know, they get what they wanted in the last life. And then in this life, they're dissatisfied because they want something else and they can't get that right now. They'll have to accumulate the Sukriti, and then in the next life, they'll get it. And by that time, they may not want it. They may not want to be the president of America by that time. They may have gone off the idea, taking the sixth of the karma. Shishi, Kodinitai, Maya Po Shashi Ke. So it's really, it's like looking at a plate of spaghetti and trying to work out where it started, you know. It's like, it's just so, the best thing is just start fasting from spaghetti. Just get out, you know. You don't even have to want to enjoy the material energy, even if you just want to, well, I suppose it's a kind of subtle enjoyment where you're manipulating it, when you're kind of thinking you've got it in control. I've made this invention, I'm really going places, you know. And a lot of the inventions, if you look at them, they're only copies of what the birds are doing or the whales are doing or what everybody else is doing anyway, you know. But they don't give any credit. But if a guy can make a machine where he's got like feathers on his arms and he can start flapping and start flying, everyone's like, wow, that's so cool, you know. Prabhupada was saying now, nobody's interested in the dog that barks, but if a man sits up on a chair and starts barking like a dog, everyone's like, oh, that's amazing. And they're giving him money, you know. And all he's doing is barking like a dog. Well, why not give the dog a fiver, you know? He's doing it better than anybody. So yeah, it's a mess. It's a bit of a, but the solution is very proactive, because you just work on yourself to begin with. Prabhupada was saying, before you try and save anybody, save yourself. So you establish yourself on a certain steady foundation of knowledge, of humility, of ability to practice Vaishnava culture, respect, and that is there. And you start getting into a regulated lifestyle. You start to become nishta, the anarthas start to go, and then you can start to help other people, you know, pull other people. Otherwise, if you jump in and, you know, everyone's drowning and then they say, don't worry, I'll help you. And they say, oh, can you swim? I can't swim either, but don't worry about that. I've come in to help you. Then everyone just goes down, you know. And the way they help a person that's drowning, if the person's like goes into panic mode and they can't reason with him, they break his thumbs so that he can't grip them, to grab them down, and then just drag him out. So it would seem, well, that's really cruel, but he's actually helping the person, you know. You have to be cruel to be kind.
Earlier on, you were talking about how scientists, they may discover some law, for example, but they exclude Krishna from that. They call it gravity, or they call it time, or, you know, they discover something, give it a name. But it's interesting that it doesn't lead them to think, okay, well, I've discovered this amazing thing which is in order, but rather they just give it their own name, and then it becomes like their law, although they only discovered it. So you would think that it would lead them to be more awestruck, that, you know, oh, this is amazing, you know, we've just discovered this. But it seems like their underlying intention is to deny God in the first place, so no matter, regardless of what they find, they're not necessarily going to be led to some higher understanding.
What's interesting, Einstein was theistic. But it's interesting because and Srila Prabhupada wanted the Vanashram Dham established because you have Maya Prita Jnana, you have people that could be aware, that could be awestruck and could appreciate. You know, they understand time to some degree and gravity to some degree, but they don't understand how gravity affects time. Because if you're in a situation where the gravity is not so strong, suddenly time doesn't, and then they're not sure how that interrelates, you know. So if they were in an environment where they could cultivate their humility and pridelessness, and they were in the association. But it's interesting in the book of Cosmology on Trial by Vyasaki, who's showing that when people do stumble across things which kind of contradict their theory and attitude, then it's just blacklisted. Same with hidden technology, because they have an agenda that they don't want it to seem like there's somebody in control other than us. So anything else gets excluded, you know. And we're going to look at the universe, but we'll just look at it like, you know, in this way, and anything we can see is fine, but anything else, no. So that's like a really crippled, you know, the culture's going to go, no, you know, they can make a light bulb that lasts a lifetime, but it doesn't make money. So we haven't got light bulbs that last. They can make a car that lasts, we haven't got it because it doesn't make money. They can make a razor blade that doesn't go blunt. We haven't got it because it doesn't make money. You know? So the whole advancement of civilization is crippled by this, this miserly mentality, you know, by the cripple-minded. They just want to control and be greedy and exploit. And if they can't do that, then okay, it doesn't exist, you know. And we could flourish. The human race could flourish. We could have all this money that's being spent on defense, on parks, and we could plant fruit trees so that nobody would go hungry. There's so much we can do, you know.
Yeah, thanks, Bruce. So what is it that that inspires them to choose to ignore, because that knowledge could lead to a better world for everybody and a better understanding? And even in their own life, we may be like that. You know, we filter certain things out because we don't really want to see what is actually the truth.
Well, it reminds me when I was 19 in Stockport doing the foundation course, and I was inclined toward art. And they were saying, well, you're not going to make any money if you're a fine artist. Why don't you try advertising? So I'm sitting there in class and Mr. Peacock saying, the world's full of suckers, and the only thing you can do with a sucker is rip them off. So I was thinking, I'm not sure I want to really use my art for that. But that was the only thing that was financially viable. So unfortunately, financial viability outweighs ideals, unfortunately, because of the environment that we're in, you know. So unless that is nurtured and there's an environment where they can feel that they'll be supported, even if they don't go along a certain agenda, then we can start looking at real truth, you know. And then and it's interesting when you go back how the old systems, they had heating systems in the Roman times. It was one big heater, and then all the hot water went through all these different places, and the whole town got heated at the same time, you know. But why do that? You know, you can't make a lot of money that way. Everyone's just using a communal system. So as a whole, we could flourish, but we'd have to give up enmity, selfishness. And the system is breaking down around us, actually. It's all crumbling down. And the farm, the living sustainably will come through it all, you know. Because that's the whole nature of the whole flaw with unsustainability is it's unsustainable. It's unsustainable. So it's just a question of how long it takes. That's the whole point, you know. And they pat themselves on the back, you know, give me £3 for an organic carrot. You mean give me £3 because you've failed. You've tried every chemical under the sun, and now we've got to pay you £3 to not touch it with any chemicals? You just accept you failed, you know. Go back. You've had to go back to square one. It wasn't sustainable. Carrots have been grown for thousands of years. That was sustainable. You're spraying them with all kinds of stuff. It'll kill everything. It'll bleach the earth. Next year, there won't be a crop. Not sustainable. Oh, but we made a lot of money one year. That's all right. But then the next year, you starved because there was no carrots. So no long-term vision. You'd think they'd at least be thinking about their kids, you know, or their kids' kids. Well, okay, I'll trash the planet. But what about your kids? Well, that's their problem. I'm not going to have any kids. So yeah, it's not sustainable. And we're just kind of confirming that. They say with psychology, the best way to instruct a person is to wait till the person realizes it himself and then agree with them. So it's a bit like that in society. You know, we're kind of going along being vegetarian and leading a simple life, and the whole thing is crashing down. And they say, this isn't working. So it's funny you should say that. We were thinking that as well, you know. Have you tried living off the land, simple life? Okay. Well, maybe I can take that on board, you know. We just quietly get on with it. I mean, there's so many books out there, all the seeds are there waiting, and then we just have to wait for the bombs to start going off. And In one sense, they already are, because the congregation is very strong. Up here in Scotland, we have so many promising signs, people that are very serious, sadhakas, and it will grow like that, you know. I mean, it's funny. It reminds me, actually, Krunabhav reminds me of being on a ship, and you just got this little crew, and they're keeping the ship clean and making sure the windows are screwed in properly and the steering wheel's okay, you know. Then every now and again, the ship's jam-packed. Suddenly, everybody just comes in from everywhere, and there's not enough room on the ship, and then everyone goes, and we clean the ship up, and we keep it running, and then the next minute, jam-packed again, you know. So sometimes it may seem a little quiet in the temple, but just remember all the festival days, and we're keeping things afloat for that. And then bit by bit, people will start to move in, become part of the community, and things will start to flourish, you know. There's no reason why it can't be the biggest place, the biggest center in the UK.
Yeah, just a comment on my observation living in Karunabhavan for a year and a half now. Like small temple, not in terms of space-wise, say, but in terms of devotees living, but tremendously appreciate, especially if I see festivals, the way festivals are kind of done, and see the prasadam being prepared in festivals. So that speaks for it. And some interactions with devotees coming from outside Glasgow or even outside of Scotland, say, and all, and how they feel in the festival in terms of the enthusiasm, the classes, the kirtan, the prasadam, and retreats, those who come, everyone had such a great time. So even though, yeah, very nice point, like the ship and maybe a small crew, but cleaning the ship. Thank you, Prabhu.
Yeah. It's nice to have inspiring thoughts, and devotional service. Krishna consciousness is actually, it's based upon inspiration. But the funny thing about inspiration is nobody can force it on you. You have to find it yourself. And if you can't find inspiration, it's nobody else's fault but your own. You can't blame somebody else for not being inspired. So that's the challenge. And Krishna wants us to. He wants it. I mean, the whole Gayatri mantra is about being enthused. When you start chanting Gayatri, you'll see it's all about the attitude, the enthusiasm. That's what we're begging for. I mean, we want service, and that's nice. But even better than service is the enthusiasm to want to do the service. That's more important. Because if you've got that, then you'll always find service.
Yeah, I appreciate that point about inspiration, because I remember one time feeling uninspired, and I thought, well, what is the cause of inspiration? It's hearing from sources which give you inspiration and encouragement. I was on a break at the time, and I just spent the day listening to and watching short video clips of different inspiring devotees.
Yeah.
And I came to the conclusion that if you're looking for inspiration, then you'll certainly find it. And if you connect with certain sources of inspiration, then you can't fail to be inspired if you're actually looking for that inspiration.
Yeah.
So when people say they feel uninspired, then it's can it be anyone other than themselves to blame for that?
Yeah, no, I mean, Chaitadapan Rajanam Bhava Maha Devagni Bhavanam Shrikadeva Chandrika Vitanam Vidya Vadu Jivanam. The Jivanam, the life. The life is coming from the name, the holy name. If your japa is no good, then it's going to be hard to be inspired, because japa helps you to see things differently. Like Satyananda Swami has just been saying recently, we've been reading out from his book, Broken Names, that when you're chanting, there's a dialogue. So Krishna's helping you to see things in a way which is inspiring. He's maybe not speaking directly to you, but you can go 180 degree shift in the way you're looking at something once you've chanted your japa. So it's giving you that jivanam, the life, all the life, the enthusiasm is coming from chanting the holy name. If we're not chanting and we're not hearing, then it'll be very difficult. Everything starts with that chanting, you know. And then, yeah, then we'll be receptive to look for good association. we'll be able to distinguish, and we'll also learn the art of how to associate distantly respecting, formally obeisances, and intimate heart-to-heart revelation. That's the challenge. Rupa Goswami is saying, Krishnati Yajagritama. Can you do that with your mind? You can respect everybody, but there's only a few that you'll open up to. And that again is up to you to do that. You have to work out where you're going to take the association, how you're going to get the inspiration. They say when a pack of reindeer are running, or deer are running, and there's a pack of wolves chasing them, they'll pick off the one who's right at the back of the pack. So if you want to stay safe, then keep up with the pack. You know, the devotees that are very enthusiastic and very productive in their devotional service, keep with them, you know, keep in pace with them. That's why marathon is nice, because with the marathon we have devotees going out doing phenomenal things, and we start thinking, okay, well maybe I could, you know, I thought I was doing really well, but wow, this is another level, you know. Maybe I can find out how they're doing it, and what's their sadhana, what are they saying to people, what's their consciousness, what's their vision, what's their inspiration, break it all down, find out how they're getting enthused like that.
Sometimes when one is in the suppose someone is very unenthused and in the company of, say, extremely enthusiastic people, is it not the fear that he might feel a bit worried, fearful, and sort of, oh, I do not belong here.
Yeah.
This is not for me. I cannot do this, jumping up.
Absolutely. That's why people leave ISKCON all the time.
So how do we make sure that my strong passion and enthusiasm in practicing Krishna consciousness is, rather than burning someone out in the sense like he leaves, is inspiring him to...
Yeah, that's not your fault. That's his fault. You know, that's something he has to address. It's like, I was listening yesterday to Kadamba Kanmar. I was leading a kirtan. He's in Ravel. It's just like on another level, right? He starts off mellow, and then he's just letting them sing, isn't he? Jaya Radhi, Jaya Krishna, Jaya Vrindavan, and he's just like, and he hands it over to them, and he's just like this. But he brings it up to such a crescendo, you know, such an intensity, and then he's inviting them. You come in also. You share the same urgency, you know. It's just amazing, isn't it? I was like, wow. It's like looking at a miracle, and then everything goes down again, and then again back up, and then into this. I mean, you can't copy it, can you? It's just, I was thinking this morning I was leading, I was thinking, maybe I can do a quick Kadamba Kanmar Maharaj. No way, you know. So, so when the queen bee leaves the hive, she flies up and the strong ones follow her. And the weak ones, are the ones who are fried, who can't be bothered, or are still in bed in their honeycomb. They get left behind. So unfortunately, it's not survival of the fittest in ISKCON. It's survival of the enthusiasticest. And you just have to stay enthusiastic, you know. If you've decided you're not going to swim anymore, then you'll sink. You can't blame anybody else. You've got to swim. You've got to fly your own airplane.
Can I just ask in that regard, like, in this one pastime, Prabhupada meets some devotee who's left the movement for some reason, and I think he's almost crying, saying, Prabhupada's saying, you know, like, what have I done? How could I make you stay?
Yeah.
That's Prabhupada's mood.
Yeah.
And of course, we're not Prabhupada, but should we not try and emulate that mood of, like, no matter where people are at, you know, shouldn't we try and just bring them where they're at rather than just saying, no, you have to get up to this level?
Yeah. Well, Srila Prabhupada said 50% we should take it as our fault. 50% is, so 50% at least is their fault, but we should also take it as our fault, you know. And perhaps one of the proactive ways we can implement that is we can keep in contact with devotees that lapse in their Krishna consciousness, because as Srila Prabhupada said, it's accidental if they continue on, you know. And if you can nurture them and bring them round again. I'm in contact with a few devotees, and they've kind of fallen by the wayside, but they still, it's still all in there, you know. It's just a question of when it'll manifest again, you know. So we can be proactive in that sense, that we can keep in contact with them and encourage them, you know, stay their friends, and not judge them, or can make them feel like they're inferior, you know. It may be that they took on a leadership role, and it was a very, very difficult thing, you know. And we don't really get any training in ISKCON. We just get thrown in the deep end, and we try and work it out as we're going along, you know. So if we're their well-wishers, and we're praying for their reinstatement in the Society of Devotees, in the Association of Devotees, then in due course of time that will happen, because Krishna, he fulfills prayers to yourself less than he fulfills your prayers for somebody else. He's more inclined to do that because it's very selfless when you do that, you know. So if you know, we had a lot of devotees here at one time, and they did a lot of service, and they're doing different things right now, but that can't be forgotten, you know, what they did. And they helped build this place, you know, they helped get the money for all the bricks and everything that took place. So we never forget that. We always appreciate them, you know. And in due course of time, Krishna will reinstate them because there's no loss of diminution. It's just a question of how long it takes. Yeah, sometimes it can be, it's hard to assess as well, where is the success, you know, 100 devotees join, 90 leave, but how many of them remember Krishna on their deathbed? There's a lot of stories of devotees who are seeing Srila Prabhupada and seeing Krishna, and they've left. So they forgot, but Krishna didn't forget them, Srila Prabhupada didn't forget them, you know. So then it would be really hard to assess, well, what is the real success? Because it's not just the ones that are hanging on in a building, but it's also others outside, maybe that are crying for Krishna every night and are so sorry that they've fallen, you know.
Just a sort of comment. This is like, I'm feeling exactly like a class in Parliament. His Grace Adhoksaja Krishna Prabhu giving such good class, and like, you know, in Parliament, yes, sort of. That's the feel I'm having. Thank you, Prabhu.
Here. It's interesting to say here. But here. Yeah, so we just have to hear, and then everything will be fine.
Just a quick one, Prabhu. So in terms of like finding more enthusiasm personally for myself, if I improve my morning program, and if I'm more attentive in japa, a good way to improve, and if I do more preaching, that will keep me enthusiastic, reading and preaching, say.
Yeah.
Or is there?
There's a Sanskrit word, it's Prahlad Maharaj uses it, Shiv Ramanuj was mentioning it in his book Valapakusamanjali. It's Anuskuskriyat or something, but it refers to the process of putting an iron rod in the fire, and then eventually the iron rod doesn't have the qualities of the iron rod anymore. It's giving off heat and it's giving off light. And Prahlad Maharaj is describing that by hearing and meditating on Krishna, the body becomes spiritualized. It's like we were in a kirtan in Radhashyama on the farm in Hungary, and after 6 hours I was feeling a bit tired, you know. It was the same melody as well, 6 hours, and then my feet were getting sore, and I was thinking, I think I'll turn in for the night. And it was about 12:30, and then suddenly there was this whoosh of energy. Everybody was like lifted by it, you know. We were just like, we didn't feel our bodies anymore, and there was no pain anymore. There was so much energy, just like a miracle. You know, it was like the temple room had been filled up with water. We were just kind of floating on it. There was no sensation of the body anymore, you know. And then we went on for a few more hours. So it's hard to get through that barrier. That's what the marathon is showing us as well. You reach a barrier, and you think, I can't do any more than this, and then you break through. You break through it into something else, you know. Into some other realm, some other energy starts to kick in, you know. So you have to have faith, and you have to be enthusiastic, and you have to sustain it confidently over a prolonged period of time, and then you're able to penetrate, you know. If you just run up to a big, thick balloon with a 3-inch rubber membrane, and you go, oh no, this is useless, you know. But you're going to have to go back quite a bit from the balloon. You're going to have to really run, and you're going to have like a really sharp, and then you'll penetrate the membrane, and then you go through the mental platform. Jai, ISKCON Guruvrinda ki, Srila Prabhupada ki, Go Premanandi.
His Grace Adhoksaja Krishna Prabhu ki.